Hi, I'm Harvey Hubbell, and you're listening to Harvey Hubbell's Show and Tell. For those of you who don't know, we just recently finished a documentary called Hopeville, and it's about the reading crisis in America and how to fix it. When we finished the movie, we knew we needed some sort of call to action. It's not just a movie.
It's a movement.
It's a movement. So that's why we created the Advocacy Toolkit. Our producer, Amy, here is going to show us how it all works.
So it's really easy. It's just advocacytoolkit.com. This site is, currently under construction. We're adding to it weekly, and we'll continue to add to it. So the great thing about the Advocacy Toolkit is that it's all the extra stuff from the filming that you've done for Hopeville and, some of your other films.
After we made the movie, we wanted to make the Advocacy Toolkit to help out parents, educators, any kind of decision makers, so they can look at this and it tells what's happening in the literacy crisis in our nation from whatever state you're in.
Part of our Advocacy Toolkit is a state resource guide. So you can see here that we have the United States of America all in green. Do you want to pick a state, Harvey?
Let's take a look at Massachusetts.
All right, so we're going to head over to Mass. You can click the state or the icon. So we have individual state pages. We have a little bit of information about what's going on in terms of literacy and advocating for, increased literacy rates. On the left here, we have the average reading levels in Massachusetts. So this is, state specific. So every page that you go to will have the specific state demographics and numbers from the most recent NAEP exam. And then you can also see there's score gaps on the right-hand side.
Now, this part, once we start seeing these pictures, this is a great example of how things are going to keep growing. So we have a couple people here. Let's take a look at Barbara Wilson.
Sure, Harvey. So as you can see, everyone has their own profile page with a description of who they are, a link to their website, and we're even adding profile videos to each page.
Let's watch her video.
Hi, I'm Barbara Wilson, president and co-founder of Wilson Language Training with my husband, Ed. It's located in Oxford, Massachusetts, but we work with school districts throughout the country. Together, we founded Wilson Language Training over 30 years ago. So for more than 3 decades, we have worked with schools consulting and providing professional learning.
That's great. So they're master educators, they're researchers, and they sit down, and these are the podcasts. So right now we have placeholders, but eventually there'll be an hour-long conversation with these experts in the field, and this will be constantly growing. And we have 4 in Massachusetts right now. I envision in the future there could be twice that many, 3 times, 4 times that many.
Absolutely.
And that happens in all the states. That happens in Texas. That happens in California, Arkansas, Arizona, Alaska. So that's like the beauty of this, and that's why we're really proud of how we're bringing this all together. The Massachusetts evidence-based organizations, they're all listed right here. If you're a decision maker, and that could be a school superintendent, a parent, parents are decision makers, an elected official, Board of Education, you're going to be able to come here and get the information that you need and then continue on your own personal journey. We also have, I don't know if this is the right time to go in here, but this is perfect because we have white papers. So there's new science happening all the time. Instead of having white papers that are filed away in a drawer someplace, now moms, dads, teachers, everybody can read the latest science. And they can get involved, and they can cross-reference, and they can talk to some of the same people who wrote the papers.
So speaking of advocacy, Harvey, we have a whole slew of tools here that help you learn how to advocate for change. Of course, the number one thing I would suggest someone to do when they're learning about the science of reading and the literacy crisis is watch Hopeville. You can check it out on hopevillefilm.com, and you can find your way to the Advocacy Toolkit from there, which is advocacytoolkit.com. In addition to tools for individuals, we have tools for organizations.
So we made a film about the literacy crisis in the United States. There's over 330 million Americans. That's 330 million different kind of problems because we all learn differently and we're all been handed a different deck. So as filmmakers, we struggle with who is our audience? Well, our audience is very broad. We want to make sure that when we have a call to action right at the end of this film, get involved with the Advocacy Toolkit. And that's where you take over. If you want to get involved and you want to work on this, solve this problem, or work on this problem, it's where can you get in and who is your resources? And that's why we built this, to be able to help out the individual advocate. And if you're trying to help somebody read, your kid or somebody in your classroom or somebody in your district, you're an advocate. Am I right?
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody can be an advocate. And I think this toolkit's a really good, show of that. You can, use this template. You can download the template letter right from the website and write to your decision makers in your area, your politicians, your superintendents, your board of ed. So advocacy is for everybody. And the great thing is that nobody's alone. So we also have a number of groups that are across the country, from the International Dyslexia Association to the 95% group, Decoding Dyslexia. And all of these groups are somehow, shape, way, or form involved in helping the illiteracy crisis that's happening right now. So there's organizations already in place, likely having meetings, likely having conferences or summits or some sort of get-together where you can meet folks in your area that are very well versed in what's happening, specifically to your state or your district. Every school district is different, just the way we're all wired differently. There's no overarching, curriculum in the United States. So everything is individualized to a district or a school, and these organizations, I want to say specifically Decoding Dyslexia, they're across the country and they're individual to each state, and they've done huge work in passing laws.
That's a parent advocacy group. We're one click away from finding other people who are working on the same solution, the same problem, and realizing this is something that we can do better in. And why can we do better? Because the scientists are working on it, and they've been studying this, and all the papers and the information is right here.
You've known that for a while now. You know that we can teach everybody. We can reach 95% of all students. And I really, commend the work that you've done and the team has done in making these resources available to everyone. You've really, you've been following the literacy crisis for as long as I've known you.
And we're friends with a lot of neuroscientists and master educators.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great segue into video resources. So I love that these videos are broken down into categories, and believe you me, this is just the beginning. So we have 6 categories ranging from evidence-based practices to early intervention, tips for parental involvement, and then also teacher training. Hopeful just got finished pretty recently, so we've been working on that. Now all the extra behind the scenes, other footage that didn't make it into the film are going to live on this site.
To try to tell this story and put it into an 80-minute story, there's so much of it that's going on. And when it affects 330 million people, there's really 330 million stories on literacy.
So again, this is the video library. And as you'll be able to see, we have some really, impressive names of researchers like Dr. Mark Seidenberg, Dr. Margie Gillis. It's a really great start. And like we had said before, we'll be uploading videos at least weekly. You can join our mailing list down at the bottom, get in contact with us, and then make a connection and share a resource that maybe not be on here already.
Okay, so here's what I really love about the video library. Over here, why the policymakers are important, how we can all work together to fix the reading crisis in America.
I get Ben.
Go to Ben.
Or Tracy.
Go to Dr. Ben Powers.
Sure.
The problem with textbook companies.
Oh.
The problems we have in this country is that a lot of decisions are driven by textbook manufacturers. There's a huge moral hazard. Who are the people that create the standardized tests? Who are the people that create the materials that get in front of our kids? Who ultimately are really having a say in how we train teachers and how we provide professional development to teachers, right? And all of them have, some type of skin in the game in terms of, a financial outcome.
Wow. It's a big problem.
Let's go watch another one. Let's see what.
Can we watch Tracy? Why policymakers are important?
Yep.
Makers need to know what's happening because they're the ones that can change the laws. Right now, there's so many kids still struggling in school, not knowing what this is. Struggling, their parents are fighting for them to try to get the proper resources, and some of the teachers want to help, but their hands are tied because they may not know how, they're not trained to help a child with dyslexia.
I love this. This is great.
Absolutely. We need all kids to be reading, not just, the ones with extra resources, or it shouldn't matter. And that's, the other reason for the podcast. We really wanted to continue to make this information accessible to as many people as possible. There's so many folks affected. So again, this is our podcast page. It is all coming soon because, well, you're watching it right now.
So it's
Yep.
constantly growing. So each time you come back to it, you can just tune into here all the time, and it's going to constantly be growing. Part of what we're doing is we're traveling around the country. We'll do the longer podcasts before we get into certain towns, but they're going to live here after that, and we'll just keep growing and getting more of a base of knowledge.
Hopeful is more than a movie. It's a movement. It is a film. It's a toolkit. It's a podcast. It's change coming.
We believe that we can do better. We have to do better. We have to do better for our nation. We have to do better for our kids. We have to do better for ourselves.
Yeah, so that's why we made the toolkit. There is just so much information out there, good information, bad information, and a lot of folks don't really know what's what. And you've been, talking to brain scientists, interviewing neuroscientists and educators for decades now. That's really, I think, the important piece of the toolkit is getting continuing to get the research out of the laboratories and into the classroom where it can be put into implementation to really continue to help the literacy crisis. But definitely, stay tuned on the toolkit for upcoming podcasts and additional white pages. The science never stops. So we're going to keep uploading and keep adding to it as much and often as we need to.
Yeah, the information comes from the laboratories and the white papers, and now it's finally going into the laymen. It's finally going into the people who need it the most, the people who are educating our children, and the people who are raising our children. Amy, thank you for your time on this today and all of your hard work on making this happen, and thank the whole entire team for this. But this is why it's so important for us to all work together and stay connected on the science that's constantly changing around us and listening to every individual story. Okay, so I'm going to make you a deal. Please continue listening to these podcasts, and we'll continue to go off and get stories from the people who are making a difference.